Report coming live every Tuesday at 7 with Steve, Cat, Ryan, Amanda, and Eric. In the voice of NEW, Vince Berry. Hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT? Handing out smackdowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by TagMeADate. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here. No safe space, now listen in. Time to hear from some of the greats. It's time to rock and roll. This time I'm in control. Right now I'm on the streets. Keys to the city. That's 'cause I get down. Time to rock and roll.
Very, very appropriate choice of music.
I thought so.
Very appropriate. Welcome to the War Report, everybody. If you can't tell, we've selected this music for a reason. We'll get to. I guess if you haven't watched Monday Night Raw, that's a spoiler. But what do you live under a rock? This is the internet. We already know what happened, so we're going to talk about it. Welcome to the War Report, everybody. What's going on, Steve?
Not too much. Another day, another week of pro wrestling to cover. We definitely have a lot to cover. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I felt Trish was the best avenue. Because the inevitable that we've been hearing did happen. And I gotta tell you, I would have done that differently. Yeah. I thought it was a shitty turn, and I think it was a shitty turn because the punch to the back didn't land right. It seemed sloppy. Right. Becky didn't go down right away. Like there was a little bit of a hesitation. Like I would have rather Trish gone from behind, tapped her on the shoulder, and as she turned, give her a chick kick and lay her out. You know, so I
it was all
very kind of missed. Yeah, it just kind of missed. But I kind of knew it was like we've been hearing, rumors, and then even during Trish's entrance, like something told me once she stepped out of the curtain that it was happening that night, because I don't know, she didn't seem to play to the crowd the way she normally does.
She was doing that kind of during the build to WrestleMania too. Even in the six-man stuff, you could always see she had kind of like sideways looks at the other two.
It's a perfect story. You know what I mean? It should have been me all along with Lita. Obviously, Trish is the one that took out Lita, I'm sure.
Right.
The moment I saw Lita laid out, I'm like, okay, Trish is turning tonight.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing is that apparently from what I'm reading, not only is it's going to be, Trish and Becky going into SummerSlam, Backlash all the way through SummerSlam, but that was Lita's last night. She is she's done, at least for now, with the WWE after that little beatdown.
Really? I can't see it ending for Lita like that.
Well, not her career, but yeah, she'll be back.
I'm sure the contract is going to be renegotiated. I mean, assuming she wants it to be.
Right.
I mean, listen, with Lita, it's tough, right? I mean, she's had the neck injury. We've seen a bunch of other people come back from it. But you could tell too, Lita's wrestling has changed, not in a bad way, but more, she's not taking as many of the big risks that she used to. And, I can appreciate that.
Exactly.
But I think it's been it's been nice having Lita and Trish back. I'm excited for a Trish heel turn. It has been a very long time since we've had a Lita or a Trish heel turn.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where it goes. The crowd obviously overwhelmingly booed her, which is obviously what you want when you're doing a heel turn. So it's off to the races, and we'll see. But I think, the idea and concept of Trish being a heel is great. We haven't seen that in a very long time, but the execution of said heel turn, I think, was kind of trash.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was meh. You know, we knew the other reason it was kind of underwhelming. I assume is because we all knew what was going to happen anyway. Like we knew this was coming sometime. So when it finally did happen, you're like, oh yeah, well that all makes sense. So you know, just underwhelming due to again, you know, the whole build to WrestleMania. That's what we were saying was it's everything that we heard 9 months ago, and you know what we heard 9 months ago was rumors of Becky and Trish, and here we are, Becky and Trish. So we got there, which is the good. The good part is we got there. The bad part is what the segment itself. So maybe going forward, we have some hope going forward because
one
both of them
story
are
that
pros.
didn't get changed.
Yeah, right. The one
You
story
know,
that hasn't been changed.
and then of course there were a lot of changes to Raw's show, which for once was not necessarily Vince McMahon's fault.
Right, there were like travel
there were a
issues
lot
and
of
such.
travel issues. Yeah.
Well, you know, that leads me to a question. So, not really related to the heel turn itself, but the women's division and the tag titles. So, let's assume that Fatal 4-Way women's tag match at Mania was for a shot at the titles. So why do Raquel and Liv get a shot, and now they're the champions, and Shayna and Ronda, you know, like what happened there? I heard there might have been an injury to one of them, and
Yeah, Ronda's been injured. That's why she only came in to do the arm bar at the end of the match. She doesn't. I don't think they probably would have put the titles on them. And even myself, I was questioning why the women's tag team titles weren't defended against Shayna and Ronda at WrestleMania. And the feedback that I got was, you know, Ronda can't do it right now. So maybe when she's back in ship
if
shape.
that's the case, then I don't see why they needed to win that Fatal 4-Way match. Then why couldn't Raquel and Liv have won it? That would have made more sense for them.
Well, I was going to say because that would make sense, Eric. They don't necessarily. I mean,
right?
Sometimes
You know,
they do things that make sense.
I'm thinking with logic.
Well, listen, forget all that. How do we feel about Liv and Raquel being tag team champions? Not that the titles mean anything, but like, was that the right choice too? I mean, I guess not like you had a lot of other options, but
I don't think those belts have meant anything for a couple of years now.
Those titles haven't meant shit since they came out.
Yeah.
And I was being nice, but you know,
Don't be nice. I mean, let's call
they haven't really.
Spade. That whole thing's been trash.
The only reason they came out with them, I think, was because Bailey and Sasha complained that there weren't, like, a couple of the women complained that there weren't tag team titles, and then they made them, and now they're pretty much. And the fact that they have NXT women's tag team titles too just blows my mind. Like, what?
Well, listen, the idea of Bailey and Sasha politicking for women's tag belts, not a bad thing.
Right. No,
but
not
they
again.
don't have enough. Yeah. They don't have enough women's tag teams to make it worth a fuck. That's the
right.
problem.
What I meant by that was it was their idea. They pitched it, and somebody took it and ran with it. Sometimes when you know in the workplace, if something's not your idea, but you're on the project, you don't necessarily care about it.
Right.
It's one of those kind of things that happen. It seems like they were really gung ho about it, and maybe some people in the division were, but nobody writing the show or in charge of creative was really.
You know what they should do? You know what they should do, honestly?
That?
Get rid of these fucking tag titles for the women and bring in an intercontinental title for the women. Or, you know, some kind of women's mid-card singles title. Because there's so many different ways you can go about it where you don't need to have these generic throw together women's tag teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Yeah, and you know what? It's weird too, because at the time of them bringing these belts back, because let's be honest, there was a time in the mid to late 80s when those things did exist. But
what existed?
You know, anyway.
Wait, what existed back in the 80s?
The women's tag titles.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't ever remember women's
tag
team
girls,
titles in the
Blonde
WWE.
Angels.
I don't fucking know.
1988 Royal Rumble, one of the best matches I've ever seen. Women. Anyway, but that's not even my point. My point is that when they brought him back in, what was it? Right before Mania 36 that we went, 35 that we went to, the one with the Iconics one, right? they brought the titles back, like, I don't know, like the month prior, and that's where Bailey and Sasha won them, right? So at that time, you had the Riot Squad, you had, Mandy and Sonya, you had legit women's tag teams. But ever since then, really ever since Bailey and Sasha and maybe Asuka and Kyrie, other than that,
well, there was
team has been makeshift, and
yeah, some of them ended up getting over, like Bliss Cross. That ended up getting over.
Yeah, I mean, listen, sometimes the generic teams work, but a lot of times it doesn't. And it's, I don't know, for the men, you had so many generic teams that worked. Cesaro and Sheamus,
right?
Edge and Randy Orton, RK Bro.
Well, but see,
like
the
all these
thing.
ones that are thrown together that work, but for some reason it doesn't work the same for the women, and I don't know why.
Well, here's what you mentioned. You mentioned some tag teams,
but the same people, like a lot of commonality.
But you. So the thing that they didn't do for the women's division was come up with tag teams right away. Everything was mishmash. Like, what I'm saying is they needed to get two people together, and it shouldn't be Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. It should be Blonde and Bariqua or whatever. You know what I mean? Give them a tag team name. Present them as don't present them as two singles wrestlers. Present them as two people who want to be a team. Give them a team name, matching whatever, music, right. Titantron, the whole thing. Make them feel like teams, because that's the whole problem is that everybody in the division, even Sasha and Bailey, why don't you? They should have had some better name than just Sasha and Bailey. Like, you know what I mean? They needed something to say these are tag teams, because when you remember tag teams, it's the Road Warriors, it's the Rockers. Even if it's a group, it's the Four Horsemen. Like, Damage Control is the closest that the women's division had to like a team,
and they fucked that up royally.
They absolutely fumbled the bag, and they took Bailey off TV last week, but now she's back. I don't know. It's a mess, dude. Like, it really is.
They're already starting to tease,
right? It's going
Raw
south.
that they're splitting up. Which, honestly, it's going to be the best.
It's for the best.
For all three of those.
And plus, the draft is coming up anyway, so that's a good.
Oh, somebody could get drafted off that team too. That would be like if there was a blow off match on whatever the draft day is, and then one of them got drafted right after.
Well, listen, I want to, since you opened that up, the draft.
Yeah.
So Triple H has this blockbuster announcement that this is going to be the biggest, greatest draft ever in history. Now, part of me says, well, if Triple H is the one truly doing it, maybe.
Right.
If it's not, then it's going to be the same shit we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric always complains, rightfully so, by the way, that the draft means nothing because they all show up on all the shows anyway.
If they're going to, they half-ass it. Either do it or don't.
If they're going to do it, then they got to do it the right way.
Yes.
Your champions, okay. Your champions, if they're going to cross-brand, that's fine.
Right.
If Roman's your undisputed champion, he should be on both shows.
Correct.
If Owens and Sammy are undisputed, they should be on both shows. So I'm with that. However, anyone else, stay on your fucking brand. Unless it's a cross-promotional pay-per-view or, like a Survivor Series where it'll be Team Raw versus Team SmackDown.
Right, like the way they used
things like that. But if you're going to do a draft, make it fucking mean something. I actually always enjoy the draft itself. It's just the fact that the draft means shit. So it's a waste of a whole 3-hour show. You know what I mean? So hopefully they do it right this time. And I just want to firmly believe that if Triple H is truly still majority running shit, then it will be somewhat different and time will tell. But we are getting another draft. It is coming.
Well, bow our heads and pray.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, because all I want from the next draft is the Fox executives in the war room celebrating like they won the Super Bowl after
how
drafting.
Fucking stupid that was.
Drafting
as long as they don't bring
Natalia.
back that fucking robot.
Drafting Natalia, and then they all celebrated. And yeah, they had the robot Cletus. It's called Cletus, like a football cleat. It's the Fox Sports robot, and he was in there. And there was a one of the executives had their face painted like the Ultimate Warrior. It was all very silly. It was all very silly.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a joke and they do it the right way and it's somewhat, entertaining. I will tell you this. No doubt in my mind, one team that's definitely getting split up, unfortunately, are going to be the Street Profits.
Ooh,
that's coming.
Interesting. How do you feel? What's your?
I feel like I've been hearing that for so long that this is their opportunity to split them without one turning on the other. And I'm okay with that because I don't think they should ever turn.
That's the best way for them because I really don't want to see either of them, at least not right now, as a heel.
Right. No,
especially with the way Montez has performed. Well, both of them really, but Montez especially. But it's like I listened to the show last week, and I agree with you, Steve. There is no Jannetty in this team.
Nope. And
there is definitely no Jannetty. I
mean, for maybe all the amazing things that Montez can do, Angelo Dawkins is no slouch.
He's come a long way.
And he just started last year losing weight.
If we were having this conversation even a year ago, I would have said, you know what? Unfortunately, I could see Dawkins being the Jannetty, but not anymore. He's put the work in. He's just as good of a singles wrestler as Montez, just different styles, and that's okay. Montez is the guy that'll fly all over the place. But let me tell you something. Dawkins flies too. He may not get the height that, but nonetheless, the guy's a star. They're both stars. And I hope that they both make it because unfortunately you see so many teams where one rises and the other one gets wished the best in their future endeavors.
Yeah. But that's usually because they're like on the same show or on the same brand and they have to interact. If they're separated completely and there's like if there is a hard line between the two shows and there's no bad blood between the guys, then yeah, that'll work just fine.
Like when they split Enzo and Cass, which first of all, they never should have done. But what if they, in that way, if there was like the draft and both of them were on
that's cool. But to your point, there are times when you do split up a tag team and there's times when you don't. I think the Street Profits, whether they split or not, will be popular as a team, will be popular individually. And even if they split up for a little while, will be popular when they get back together. So might as well give it a shot. Split them up that way. In your example, though, Eric, Enzo and Cass should not have been separated. Yeah. And, time ended up proving that. But
those are
we knew it from the rip. It was a bad idea.
In fact,
the two of them needed each other.
They really did.
Cass was nothing without Enzo, and Enzo was nothing without Cass.
In fact, the fact that they did it, I had a great way for them to kind of like go back and pretend it never happened. Like, remember when Cass was feuding with Big Show?
Yeah.
The whole, I'm the giant.
The giant,
I'm the real giant thing. And Enzo was like in a fucking shark cage because, everybody was in a shark cage.
Oh, yeah. They had to sell that shark cage toy.
That would have been the perfect opportunity to have it been like a swerve the whole time where Enzo was in on it. And Enzo and Cass get back together only as heels. And then you retire the Big Show, basically,
Yeah, I just think they're, their priority, or at least I should repeat, excuse me, Vince McMahon's priority at the time was not the small Jewish guy that talked like he was Italian. It was the tall guy that, even though he was, let's say a rough material that needed to be polished into a stone or a marble, a stone needed to be polished into a diamond or into a marble. He just needed that refinement. That was the bigger picture. They didn't give a shit about the little guy, not realizing that the little guy completed the package. Even if you said to the guy, Enzo, you're a great talker. You're never going to wrestle again. You're just going to be this guy's manager. I think he would be okay with it. I think Cass would have been okay with it. I think the fans would have been okay with it.
Yeah, because at least they're still together.
Nobody was paying to see Enzo wrestle. They wanted to, he's
You wanted the
7
hot
feet
tag
tall,
where
and you
Cass
can't
comes
teach
in
that.
and destroys everybody.
Right. They wanted to so here's what they wanted. They wanted to chant along with Enzo and his promo, like
They
the like
wanted him as a mouthpiece
right.
because he was great at it.
So they could chant for Enzo and then watch the big guy choke slam people. It's a real simple. I just don't understand how it escaped them, or that somehow they thought the guy. No knock on Big Cass, Big Bill, whatever you want to call him. No knock on the guy, but I think even he would say that his promo skills are not his strong suit, and that having somebody like Enzo with him was a real big benefit. And even now, he's in a group, and it's not exactly the world's greatest group, the Firm, but like you've got Stokely, who's a great mouthpiece, and Stokely is Big Bill's mouthpiece, and that's all you need. You just need a guy to get the heat and light the fire, and then you have Big Bill come in and do his big man stuff. It's really simple, and I still don't understand how they messed all of this up.
Going back real quick before we move subjects here, going back to the whole idea of one's the Shawn Michaels, one's the Marty Jannetty.
Yeah.
The other reason why the term the Jannetty exists is not just because one guy goes up and the other goes down. There's also, it's not just because of there's other reasons why that happened. Marty was a good wrestler also, but I think that ultimately, and yeah, okay, he definitely didn't have the charisma Shawn Michaels did, right? But here's the thing: the other reason why that what I'm dealing with basically is they need to add something to the definition of a Jannetty, in that Marty's biggest issues were always himself. He always had these other problems going on, and so that was a big part of why.
I don't agree. Jannetty, the term Jannetty is because one outshined the other.
Well, no,
Shawn
I know that.
Michaels was the star of that team. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
But that
you
was
knew
always
from the
the
very
intent.
beginning, Shawn
I'm
Michaels
not
was going to be
disagreeing
the
with
star.
that. I'm just saying that.
But that's the definition of a Jannetty.
Okay,
When
yeah,
you know what I
fair
mean?
enough,
Like,
but
yes,
I'm
he
just
had a lot of
saying,
demons, but
yeah,
so did
I'm
Shawn
just
Michaels.
saying add to that a little bit, because like there's like an asterisk with it.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're
Right.
saying, but I
And
don't know.
like, look, if you can even look back at the Hart Foundation, who had broken up actually before the Rockers did, but they didn't have that big heel turn, but it was amicably. But even then, Jim Neidhart was having his problems too. Although we knew that Bret Hart was clearly the star of the two, even way back in the '80s, we knew that.
Right, but I think that was the intent of those tag teams, though. Marty
Yeah.
Jannetty was a guy that was had prior success as a singles person, and not that he was in the twilight of his career, but he was older than Shawn, so they put Shawn in a tag team so an older guy could kind of teach him the ropes. And then once he learned all he could from him, they were going to split him up. And that was the same thing with Bret. They saw the talent in Bret and they put him with an older, more experienced Neidhart. And then, when it was time, they split them up. So I think, and also,
Yes,
there
but
were,
wait. But
yeah,
here's the difference. Anvil was not a Jannetty. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, yes, Anvil
Anvil still
never
had his
became a
own,
world champion like Bret Hart did.
but he had his own career and his own identity. Right.
Correct.
I think, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because
But Eric's right. I think there were a lot of mitigating circumstances, and the other thing was you
Well,
can't.
but when you're talking about Jannetty and Shawn specifically,
Yeah.
yes, Jannetty had a lot of demons, but so did Shawn.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
but here's
that's true, too.
the difference being Vince was in love with Shawn from a business perspective. You know what I mean? Like he saw Shawn as big business, as a main eventer, and he always gave the main event guys a little bit of leeway, whether it was Hogan or whoever. He kind of always gave them enough. Warrior got to be too much, but like there were guys that could get away with murder if you were a main event, literally get away with murder if you were a main eventer. And if you weren't perceived that way by the front office, like Jannetty, wasn't held in the same esteem as Shawn. His errors, while similar, looked worse or were treated worse by the office because he was perceived as a mid-card guy and Sean was perceived as a future main eventer. So, there's bias to it. The bias plays a big factor into it.
And here's a team, and again, I want to move on, but just real quick, a team that I don't think there was like necessarily the whole Jannetty thing, and I'm going to go with Strikeforce. The only reason I say this, that there was no Jannetty nor a Shawn Michaels in this case, is because, okay, yes, on paper, initially, Rick did get the big push and the gimmick and everything, but he never won any damn titles at all. He never won, really, frankly, maybe after a year, he didn't win shit after that. Neither did Tito. So there was no Jannetty or Shawn in that case.
Right. And tag teams get formed for different reasons. Like guys like the Revival, FTR, they got put together because they were singles guys that they didn't have anything to do with, so they threw them together. It's not that they saw one over the other. And I think that was probably,
prime example of two
another
guys
thing.
you just throw together and become one of the greatest tag
Yeah,
teams
and
of
it
all
actually
time.
works. It
Yeah.
doesn't always work out that way. That's the thing.
Like, look at Hawk and Animal. You can't have either one legitimately as a singles guy. I'm sorry. It's not going to work. Whereas the only other person that came close to the status of like a Shawn Michaels in that high success is I'm going to go with Bully Ray.
Yes, I'll
who's
agree
the
with
guy that you maybe initially didn't think was going to be this big heel, but he came one of the best heels in the business ever and went way far ahead of Devon, winning world titles and shit like that.
Well, look at him even now in Impact.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still killing it, and he is a great heel. He knows how to piss you off and get you under your skin. I mean, he really is very good with the psychology. No doubt.
Wasn't there always now for the Road Warriors? Was it Animal that they always kind of pegged as the if he could be the singles guy, it would be Animal, or was it Hawk?
I don't know. I'd say Hawk because the Hawk had better mic skills, I thought.
Hawk was the one that passed away first?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was okay. So it was Hawk I hate that that's the way I have
Hawk
to remember
had to say was, well, and then all the shit that came out of his mouth was just priceless, really.
Yeah, and I guess there was, I listen to and watch so many of those old shoot interviews that they all run together. But I remember somebody from the Territory days, Jim Crockett days, whether it was Cornette or whether it was anybody else that I listened to in one of those shoot interviews, they said, he was kind of being considered as like a main event NWA title guy, Hawk. That they were thinking of potentially making him a singles guy. They did wrestle singles matches, but I guess there was some kind of talk of making him.
I mean, because he had a couple of matches with Flair and stuff like that for the title.
Yeah, and I think out of the two of them, and again, that's not a team that has any Jannetties, so to speak. They both had their successes. So,
but there's also no Shawn Michaels either.
Right? Yeah, that's a weird one where
they
really are just better
teams.
Yeah, they're meant to be teams. Al has joined us. For those of you not watching the stream and seeing his little icon thingy pop up, how's it going, Al?
What's going on, guys? Sorry for the delay.
Hey, not a problem. We were just talking about tag teams. We were talking about potentially splitting the Street Profits during the draft as a way to prevent them from turning on each other or having one turn on the other. They can just be drafted to different shows. What do you think about that?
I'm saying that's one guaranteed team that is going to get split during the draft.
I definitely think they're going to split them, but because it's Triple H, I see Triple H loving the drama and probably finding a way for them to feud, like maybe a way of I'm forgetting his name, not D'Angelo. Is D'Angelo the big one?
Angelo, yeah,
Angelo, right. Gets kind of like jealous of Ford, like because he's getting all the attention and he's got the hot wife and all this stuff. So I could see like something going on that way.
I'm hoping that it doesn't end that way because I want them to be like the New Day where they split because of a draft, but they're still, best friends and they can get back together at any time. I mean, listen, they can turn on each other and still get back together. But
a la Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
Right.
That's I mean, I could, the thing is, I feel like Angelo's gonna need some sort of heat. Because I don't really see him being the baby face by himself. I see that more in Ford than I do Angelo. So for some reason, I feel like he'll need that heat. And maybe, who knows, you could give him a little, maybe he goes over and, just starts ruining people's life. And, he is a big guy and they do love big guys. So maybe he can do it. And he's very agile too.
Yeah. I mean, we're thinking more like, we don't necessarily want to see it happen because we think both of those guys are probably better suited as baby faces. And, I guess always in the back of your
Or at
mind
least
is
for
like
now.
right. And in the back of your mind, you do hope that something comes of it. You know what I mean? Like, you hope that, like, rather than a split up and then, like, there's bad blood and it's so far down the line they team back up.
If there's any team that's going to split up and have drama, that's Damage Control for sure.
Oh yeah, they're gonna have a lot of drama for sure, and they're definitely gonna split up. That's a guarantee.
But now, so does Io and Dakota turn face, or does Bailey turn face?
That's a good question.
I would like. I mean, how long has Bailey now been a heel for?
She's been a heel for a couple years now, but I've been enjoying Bailey as a heel, to be honest with you.
Remember how we spoke about if you don't, a couple weeks ago, and I was on saying, if you don't change the angle of the character by making them face or heel, it doesn't affect them. But once they start messing with their characters, really, when they go the other way, I feel like if they keep Bailey with the same edge she has now, and I make her happy-go-lucky Bailey, she will go over as a face in a way like the Man does. Because the Man, she's still like the Man, arrogant and all that, but she's a face.
Well, I don't think Bailey's ever going to go back to the bubbly.
Oh, I hope not. God.
No.
Side ponytail and bring those fucking inflatable things back. Like, I think that Bailey's dead. But I agree with Al. I think if you have her act somewhat like the Man, the crowd is going to get behind her organically. I mean, listen, the truth of the matter is the crowd's kind of behind her anyway until she said something. But, you hear Bailey's music and the crowd gets excited. I mean, listen, in this business, any reaction is a great reaction anyway. But,
right.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
But in that respect, I always think of someone like The Rock, who, became this mega heel, but that mega heel became this mega baby face that was totally different than the Rocky Maivia baby face. So that's what Al is getting at, in that Bailey needs that, and she'll become a baby face again, but just a different baby face.
Yeah, right. An edgier one.
Right. Keep that edge on her.
Al, I want to get your opinion on this. When we opened the show,
yeah,
I had said that the Trish heel turn finally happened that we've been talking and expecting. And as much as I'm excited to see a heel run with Trish, the execution of the heel turn I thought was shit. It would have been much better with a tap on the shoulder. She turns around and a chick kick and lay her out, rather than a punch to the back that gets delayed and then the fall's delayed, and it just looked very, very rookie-ish, I guess, in a way. Al, what do you think?
I felt like I don't know. It was weird because it was like we were waiting for it to happen, and they looked at each other like awkwardly. Like I wasn't a fan of it either. Like I thought it was going to be something better. I would have loved to seen it during the match, not like let that be the reason that they lose the belt. In a way, did it happen? It didn't happen while she was pinned. It happened afterwards. They hugged, and oh my god, and then she hits her behind her face. I don't know. I just didn't like that too much. I'm in agreement with you. It wasn't. The
execution was poor. It was they dropped they missed an opportunity. I think that they could have done something bigger. I agree. Even during the match, it could have been something as simple as Becky goes for the tag and Trish drops off the apron and walks away.
Exactly.
And then doesn't say anything until next week. And get people thinking, oh my God, why did Trish do that to Becky? And, tune in next week. Like, that would have been better than what we got. Sometimes I get it. Like, you want the physicality and you want the shock value of the stab in the back, but you can get that same effect with something as simple as dropping off the apron when the tag is coming. And I think in this case, that would have gotten a lot further than the botched hit to the back that Becky dropped like 5 seconds after, which on TV is a lifetime. And it didn't have the effect. And it was a missed opportunity. But I am excited for a Trish heel turn, and I am excited. I think Becky Lynch and Trish are going to have some sensational matches coming up.
I don't know if it's only me, but have these last 2 weeks post WrestleMania smell very Vince McMahon-ish? Like, I arguably the 2 worst post WrestleMania Raws I've seen in like. I can't remember the
Unfortunately,
last
Al,
one.
I cannot disagree. It smells like Vince all over it. But you know what? I will say this: this Raw was better than last week's, which should not be the case.
No,
And I was thinking about it too, because we were pretty hard on the Raw after, which we should have been, and I stand by it. One of the issues that we mentioned that we had with it was the lack of shock value that we normally get. There were no call-ups, no surprises, really. No like, holy shit, they hired AJ Styles, like none of that kind of shit, right?
No, I think they're saving it for the draft, unfortunately.
Well, it could be, or I wonder if a lot of that had to do with the sale.
Oh, right. Things
And maybe
changed.
they couldn't do anything with contracts. They couldn't do anything with call-ups and more money in this because they were selling. And I think maybe that's why, which, if that's the case, shame on WWE. They shouldn't have done the sale until the week after and let us have the Raw after Mania that we should have gotten.
Yeah. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But like I can't. I know they said that the Cody Reigns thing was locked in weeks before Mania, but that could also be because the sale was already being talked about, and maybe they want to. I feel like there was at least some communication from somebody from Endeavor, from that company that was like, "Hey, Reigns is your big guy. Like, we gotta go. We gotta go with him right now."
Listen, I said it last week. I say it again. I don't think Cody was ever winning. I think this is the true Cody version of Hard Knocks. And, every reason that you and Al had of not wanting to get behind Cody for this purpose, we're now going to get that, because now he's going to have to fight.
Right.
And it's going to start with Brock fucking Lesnar, which
I
want to get into.
It is.
Well, and I want to get into that.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see a Brock heel turn. I love Brock as a heel. I love him as a face, and I think this has been one of the best runs for Brock ever as a face.
Probably the most fun he ever had.
And it shows. You know what I mean? You could see just the smile on his face. Like, he was really loving it. Brock is also incredible as a heel because he's just a fucking animal.
Oh, 100%.
So we're going to get now for Cody's Hard Knocks tour. It's going to start with Brock Lesnar, who absolutely fucking annihilated him last week.
Who wins?
And I have to just start off by saying Cody with yet another Grand Slam promo this week on Raw. I just thought it was such a great promo. I enjoyed it very much. Do I think Cody goes over on Brock? I don't think there's a choice. I think he has to go over. Does Cody lose WrestleMania and then the post pay-per-view after? I don't know how that plays, because it all depends on who's behind this heel turn and what the reason is. Is it truly because he's pissed off that he wasn't main event on the WrestleMania card?
Right.
I doubt it. It has everything to do with somebody by the name of Mr. Paul fucking Heyman. And I am convinced that Heyman is behind the whole thing.
Interesting.
So I don't know how that transpires into the conclusion of the match we're going to have. I'm also having a very tough time picturing Cody going over on Brock. I don't know, but I feel like he has to go over now.
It also might depend on what Brock's contract and how many dates he's doing and stuff like that too.
Well, I was just about to say, excuse
we
me,
all
I was just
thought
about
he
to
wasn't
say,
going to be around after Mania. So
yeah, we thought he'd take time off, but I was going to say, Eric, one of the things I was thinking about was what are the dates Brock's willing to work? Because if this is something that stretches through SummerSlam, then they could do 2 pay-per-views with Cody and Brock, but Cody's got to drop one of them. And then the other thing I was thinking that
hold on. Now, if that happens, then maybe Cody does lose, but then wins at SummerSlam.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, SummerSlam is one of the big 4.
Triple H versus
right.
Yeah,
Brock.
the only reason I'm saying that, and real quick, is because Riddle has been now inserted into the Bloodline feud or reinserted. So he's because of the thing with Brock and Cody last week, Cody has split off. He's no longer really interacting with the Bloodline. So he's off with Brock, and if that's the case, you don't keep them apart for 30 days and then Cody wins and then goes right back at Roman. I think you got to have this as a longer program.
Yeah, you got to keep them separated a little while.
You keep them separated.
Well, but again, to Eric's point, a lot of that has to do with what the details are of Brock's current contract. You know what I mean? So we got to see. The nice thing is there's quite a few different ways this can all play out. So we'll just have to wait and see. That's one thing that I do like is that it hasn't been so predictable. I mean, there are some things that have been very predictable. Don't get me wrong. But there are still things that get us, questioning.
No, regarding this whole hard times thing, right? And I just want to thank you guys again for getting my little speech into the show last week. That whole clarification thing. But here's the thing. One of the things you guys were talking about was if they're doing this hard times thing, right? And then potentially for Cody to actually win it next year, right? At next year's Mania. Here's the thing. I like the idea of that going through hard times, fighting his way all the way back up. However, are fans going to boo if he wins the Rumble again? And if he doesn't win the Rumble, how do you get him into the match if the titles are not split?
He wins Money in the Bank and holds it.
Okay.
I could see that.
Money in the Bank.
I could see Money in the Bank more than him winning a second Rumble. Although I got to tell you, to answer your question, I don't necessarily think they would boo. Cody's got so much momentum behind him right now that it's almost like he can't do any wrong. This is a guy that lost his biggest match of his life at WrestleMania, came out and apologized. Like, he's doing everything right to play to the crowd. So,
okay,
I don't know.
Again,
Eric,
I guess
go ahead.
Say the thing in that regards is, okay, let's do Money in the Bank, forget about the Royal Rumble. But then someone's got to win the Royal Rumble. So is it going to be a triple threat? And then it's like, I don't know.
You could always have the person who wins the Royal Rumble come out and challenge and say, I want to cash in on Monday Night Raw. I want to cash in.
One with Cena won the Rumble and then challenged Orton for the title the month before WrestleMania.
Yeah, there was some stuff like that.
Even though he ended up getting inserted anyway, but still, right.
But that's definitely happened before where the person in the Rumble has decided.
But I definitely agree with you, Steve, in that Cody definitely is getting those big pops and is, managing these amazing promos and shit.
Oh, yeah. So, and listen, by the way, too, not to jump on you, it was just announced, too, that Cody was also the #1 seller of merchandise all through Mania week.
That's right.
So, I mean, he's the guy right now. Yes, Roman is the guy, but Cody's a very slow second. I want to ask the panel a question.
Right, yeah.
I was listening to Busted Open earlier, and I was listening to Bully Ray, and he said something that got me thinking, and I don't know if I agree or disagree, so I kind of want to get the opinion. He said, if they were to split the titles somehow, and Cody was to finally win, but only win one of them, it's a loss for Cody. that Cody at this point has to be, without doubt, the undisputed champion of the world. And if at this point he was only to win one and not both belts, it's a complete loss for him. What do you guys think about that? That's a tough one for me because, on one hand, I'm like, well, I'm okay with seeing Roman keep a belt and then give Cody one. Not give it to him, but you know what I mean? Or, but does it devalue Cody as your champion?
I think not only does it devalue Cody, it also devalues Roman Reigns because
can anything devalue Roman Reigns right now?
The
guy's damn near 1,000 days as champion.
No, what I'm saying is what's devalued is the championship, in the fact that, like, what the hell was all the point of Brock, being the undisputed champion, having both belts for all this time, only to lose one of them? It makes for a better story if the whole of it is lost.
I'm surprised to hear that from you, since one of those two belts you think is not even a fucking championship.
Well, yes, but that's while they're together, it doesn't really matter as much. But once they're split again,
it's more prestigious as together as one unified championship.
I just feel like if it's a bigger moment for whoever, whether it's Cody or whoever, it's a bigger moment for the person that beats Roman to win both belts, not one.
But the devil's advocate argument is the prize isn't the title. The prize is you're the first person to pin Roman Reigns in over 1,000 days.
I honestly think that that's just as big enough a prize as the championship itself, considering Reigns' reign, if you will.
I want to go back to the original question, though. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think? Do you agree with Bully or do you not? Tara does not agree. But what do you guys think? Do you agree that it devalues him as champion if he doesn't win both? Vince, let's start with you and then go around.
I think in general, if they split the titles, whoever wins the next one or the next both of them, red or blue, they're both going to be seen as lesser because that title was split. The way to do it is if a babyface like Cody or somebody else, Rollins, whoever you have do it, Riddle, they win, they get the moment that they want is whoever wins holds up both belts, red and blue. That's all you want. The next night after the pay-per-view, that babyface comes out to the ring and says, these titles were being held hostage. I don't want to hold these titles hostage. I'm going to take XYZ title, and the other one's going to go to the other show.
Like, and I can see Cody being the guy to do that.
Right. And if it comes with a redesign or a revamping of like a modern version of the Winged Eagle or whatever they want to do with it, sure, to differentiate between the two. Because right now, the problem that I have, and I understand the consistency, and like if you look at the UFC, all of the UFC's weight classes, all of their belts are very standardized and look the same. WWE, guys, this is a work. This is you can make your belts whatever you want. And traditionally in pro wrestling, belts were not standardized. Each division, even within a company, whether it's the NWA, the AWA, the WWF, wherever, the titles weren't just differentiated by changing heavyweight to light heavyweight or women on the belt. They were differentiated by the style. The US title always looked different. The NWA or the WCW US title looked different than the WWF Intercontinental title. And the tag team titles look different from the world title. And the tag team titles do look different, but all of the main titles are all the same thing. It's the WWE logo on that big thing and just a different colored strap. And I think if they differentiated it a little bit more, like when you had the big eagle on one show and you had the big gold on the other show right after the WCW buyout, that was a big differentiation. Those titles look completely separate. When you show people the Raw and SmackDown titles now, they're very samey. And then you show them the women's Raw and SmackDown titles, and they're very samey. But then you go like to NXT, and they're all very nice titles. So I think, if there is a split in the titles, It should be a babyface winning the titles, willingly splitting them, but also that night unveiling new title designs, maybe for both shows. That's if, again, I don't have the book, I don't have the pencil, I don't have any decision making in this. I'm merely stating an opinion, and I think that's the way you got to go about it. The other way they could go about it, dude, again, devil's advocate here. The answer is Roman Reigns. And the answer is going to continue to be Roman Reigns for a long time, for the foreseeable future, potentially.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
you could have Roman keep the title until WrestleMania 40, to be honest, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, that's because it seems set up where now that Riddle's involved in the bloodline thing, you get the first, Backlash. First of all, Roman Reigns doesn't defend the title at Backlash. You either get a tag team match with Riddle and one of the KO Sammy guys, or you get a 6-way with Roman doing very little work and the Usos doing most of the work, or even you do Solo Sikoa and the Usos against Riddle, Sammy, and KO.
That's, I think, the route they're going to go for Backlash.
As a 6-man main event, because again, Roman Reigns ain't going to work unless it's that big money title match. So
I don't think Roman's going to be at WrestleMania Backlash, number one. Number two, I think you are going to get that 6-man tag, which is going to set up the rematch at SummerSlam for Sammy and Kevin versus the Usos.
Yeah, and then it will also separately set up potentially a title match for Riddle, for maybe SummerSlam. Riddle Reigns. That's a big.
I'm okay with that. They were starting to set that up, and then Riddle fucked up. So
right. So and maybe the other thing is, listen, the reports are Randy Orton is not ready to come back. Just plain and simple. He's not ready to come back.
or
as of the last I heard, maybe a week ago.
He's still not medically cleared.
So the other option could be, if he's not medically cleared, he could be out there as moral support for Riddle. You know what I mean? In a non-physical capacity, just to kind of get that RK Bro rub.
And then it's hard to figure out where the bloodline's going to go as far as like if they're going to continue having similar opponents for a while. But I had thought of a great War Games match for this year, where it's the whole bloodline plus Brock Lesnar against Kevin, Sammy, Cody, Riddle, and Orton.
If he's clear.
That would be fucking insane.
If he's clear. Then you maybe have to think of somebody else instead of Orton. But if also in the way that if Orton does come back in like somewhat of a managerial role, not only is it good for Riddle and especially with continuity, but it makes sense for Cody too, because they were tag team partners once back in the day with Legacy. So it
not
all comes full circle.
You know what match I want to see at SummerSlam?
Well, what's that?
I want to see Gunther versus Brock Lesnar.
They've been talking about that.
If Brock leaves and we didn't get the opportunity to see that match, that's a fucking drop ball, because internally that match would be amazing.
Because there weren't rumors for it to have possibly been this year's Mania.
They kind of teased it for a second in the Royal Rumble. The crowd went fucking bananas.
And look, don't get me wrong, because the Gunther's match with Sheamus and Drew, I think, with the exception of maybe Rhea versus Charlotte, I think that triple threat was the best match of all of WrestleMania.
Yeah, it was one of the matches of the weekend for sure.
Oh yeah, I agree.
But that's so. I was on Reddit earlier. Just I want to stay current before we go on the show, so I was kind of browse the headlines and see what's up. And one of the things that has come out is that it's being discussed internally. Gunther mentioned it in an interview. He said, "I want to wrestle Brock Lesnar," and it's I think there's a little smoke to that fire. They're talking about it, and I think the plan would be for SummerSlam. I guess he does, but then, so here we go, guys.
It really depends on what they're gonna do.
Here's where it gets weird. We're setting up Cody versus Brock. If we're going Brock Gunther, which Tara agrees. Thank you for dropping in the chat, Tara. She dropped in late, but it's okay. Things happen. You can always go back and listen to the stream once it's done. We have the whole replay up on YouTube and Twitch. But you know, there's potential there.
And okay, well, what about this rumor about Drew not being happy and possibly leaving and going to eight?
That's a weird one.
Here's my thing.
I think it's bullshit.
I think it's got it. Like
agree. I agree because Drew, okay, he may not have really won a lot since his championship run a couple of years ago, but he's still been a very consistent performer. I just don't see it. I don't see him going.
Yeah, I mean they've been treating him very well since he came back.
I don't think it fits. Like he'd be fine. You know, I wouldn't mind him in a feud or with Capital Combat Club or something like that, maybe. Or people are saying Pac, as an opponent. But other than that, like I don't know. I don't see Drew going anywhere. I really don't.
I don't think. Listen, how could Drew? If you really think about it, how could Drew be upset with his position in WWE? They thought enough of him to carry them through the COVID era, which that alone, even though it sucked for him, was a fucking tip of the hat to him because they felt he's the guy that can carry them through with TV screens. And then you had him have some of the greatest matches since then. These matches with Sheamus, against Sheamus, with Gunther. Like, he had a big match at WrestleMania. Like, yes, it wasn't for a title. Maybe he's upset that he hasn't been thrown in the title mix. But you can't. It's not like he's sitting backstage at catering every day.
He's been consistent, unlike Bobby Lashley, who, how the hell he's like heel 1 week, face 1 week. I don't get it.
I will say this, though. I am excited for this feud with him and Bronson Reed.
Dude, that was
because that match, listen, the match was a little sloppy at times, but the idea of somebody the size of Bronson and Lashley is gold. And I'm excited because that match ended out in a count out, so it's going to continue and be a deal. So I'm excited to see that. I really want to see Bronson go over. But I
mean, that says a lot. Just a count out with Bronson and Lashley. It lets you know how high on Bronson they are. To let them have a count out with him.
It reminds me of the '93 Survivor Series where they started to plant the seeds for Undertaker and Yokozuna fighting. Yeah. Big horses like that. That's what it reminds me of.
You know what though? It's cool because with these two, it also gives Bobby Lashley to showcase his fucking strength because he was throwing Bronson around like he was a cruiserweight at times. So, I mean, it's really great.
This is going to be big for both of them.
I agree. My problem is Bronson needs the rub.
He does. Yeah.
Bobby Lashley is all Bobby Lashley. He can take a loss. Bronson needs wins. He needs to go over. The credibility Bronson will get by going over on Bobby Lashley, you're putting a rocket ship in his ass. The guy's an animal. He's agile for a big man.
Right.
I like Bronson a lot. Do I think he's world championship material yet? No. But you could definitely put him in the IC title mix, the US title mix, any mid-card title you want. But he is a future world champion. 100%.
Oh, speaking of mid-card titles, I think this is the year for Solo Sikoa.
Yeah, dude.
He's going to get a mid-card title this year.
He's on the rocket
another one.
ship.
I don't think he's world title yet, but he's definitely mid-card title for sure.
He's they're loading the spaceship with rocket fuel for that guy, so to speak. He's the next one on the list, man. Like if they're building to anybody, like I think the draft definitely, if they put plans in for a draft, it affected some debuts. So I think like Braun Breaker, who might maybe they make him a Steiner when they bring him up to the Raw roster. I really don't know after that thing with Rick, but whatever they do, I feel like they're going to bring the kid up. He's going to have to, him and Solo feuded in NXT. They can always run that back. And I just feel like
if they were
those two guys are going to be like those guys are going to be the ones to watch out for in the mid card title.
Well, they finally anointed Carmelo Hayes in NXT as the guy. So You know,
That's wild to me.
He's another star. But here's the thing: I think Bronson call up is inevitable for sure, regardless of what happened. Although I will say fucking prayer of him using the Steiner name at this point. Yeah. And that's a shame because the credibility alone by being able to use that name, I mean, you're a fucking Steiner. You're acting like your father. You're barking like him. You're fucking,
I know.
You're a Steiner, but at the same time,
not,
I think that ship is gone now because his dad's a fucking idiot.
Yeah. He doesn't realize how far down the chain that ripples.
I just don't like the fact that I really feel like the sons should not, be punished for the sins of the father. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, if he gets called up, then he's not. If he doesn't get called up, then he's being punished, and I agree with you.
If he gets called up, whether he's a Steiner or not, doesn't matter. The call up is
what it's important. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
We are used to the Bronson Breaker name at this point. So.
It's funny though. He doesn't just act like Rick. He acts like Scott a lot too.
He talks like Scott.
Well, you know what it is? I was going to say he imitates his father, but he talks like his uncle. Yeah.
And I love the old school Steiner Brothers nods that they do with his outfits and shit. I love
definitely.
That stuff.
And he wrestles like a little bit of both of them, which is cool because he does both of their moves. So
he can handle himself on the mic, definitely in the ring, and he's young. He's got star written all over him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And again, like I said about Carmelo Hayes, this is his moment now to shine and carry the entire NXT division.
That kid is a star.
Because frankly, and then this is not a knock on him. This is really a knock on everybody else. Carmelo was the only one that I felt had remotely any credibility enough to beat Braun for the title.
Wow. And, just coming from being in that area and working in the Indies when he was working the Indies, before getting signed to NXT, he was working under the name Christian Casanova, kind of started off doing a Michael Jackson impersonator kind of gimmick. He'd come up with the hat and the sparkly jacket and the glove and like all that stuff. Wait, is he
the one that did the moonwalk DDT?
No, he's not. That guy is Santana. That's Santana Jackson. He's out of Las Vegas.
I was about to ask the same question, Eric. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not him.
Santana Jackson is still wrestling on the Indies.
I fucking love that.
Yeah, Santana. So that guy, it's cool. So Santana Jackson still wrestles on the Indies. He wrestles mainly in Las Vegas, the Midwest area, but it's his side job. The guy who plays Santana Jackson is also a member of Cirque du Soleil. So he works at Cirque du Soleil in Vegas and then wrestles when he has time to wrestle, which is cool. But so Christian Casanova was doing kind of like this, when you're on the Indies, you got to come up with a gimmick. He kind of was light skinned. He kind of almost looked like Michael Jackson if he Jerry curled his hair or whatever. So it kind of worked. But then, that's the process of the Performance Center and NXT. And changing a name and changing a gimmick and changing your lookup. And, he graduated, man. He really, it's like, Extreme Makeover Home Edition, but like for wrestlers. Like he went through the indie gimmick ringer of being like a Michael Jackson impersonator all the way to like, going through this system and coming out the end like a huge star NXT champion, which is like the next step up to making the main roster. It's really like hats off to him for overcoming kind of like what could be something that could pigeonhole you. Oh, that's the Michael Jackson guy. And then they never think of you again. But he overcame that.
Well, we are above the top of the hour, although we did start a few minutes late. Did anyone have any final thoughts that they wanted to go over before we wrap it up? I know. Tonight's final thought.
Yeah.
Take care of yourselves.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And each other.
Yeah, I think that's about it, man. I think what we'll do is, we did go past the top of the hour, but we did, we started late, so we went past the top of the hour to compensate for it. I'm glad you guys stuck around. We do this show 6 p.m. Eastern time every Tuesday evening, here on YouTube, here on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitch, wherever you might be watching us, on Twitter. Most of the social media is at TagMeADate. That's at TagMeADate with no spaces. That's for Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, most everything, Instagram, everything except for Twitch. It's twitch.tv/war report, WARREPORT. Be sure to go to our YouTube and subscribe. Just type Tag Me a Date in the search bar, hit subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when we go live or when we upload a new video. Same with Twitch, twitch.tv/war report. Give us a follow or give us a like, and you can see the archives on both of those platforms as well. If you prefer the audio version of the podcast as opposed to a video version, you can just download it on your favorite podcast app: Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play Podcast, whatever it is that you use to listen to your podcast. Just search for the War Report, search for Tag Me Date, it'll pop up. There are 2 wrestling podcasts called The War Report that are on podcast things. Just look at the icon in the description. The graphic is going to have Tag Me a Date on it. The description is going to say Tag Me a Date on it. It'll mention Steve or Vince or one of the cast members here. So just be sure to subscribe. Thank you, Tara, for hopping in the comments. If you want to be like Tara and hop in the comments, as I said, we're streaming live all over the internet, 6 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. So come join us. We love taking questions and comments in that comment section. We will read them. We'll put them on the screen, and then we'll read them out and address them. So if you want to chime in, please chime in. And last but not least, be sure to tell your friends. We are just a group of friends who like watching wrestling and discussing wrestling. We frankly probably think about it a little too much, but we love doing it for you every week. And if you have friends like us that love talking about wrestling and that's all you talk about, and you have little group chats where you talk about wrestling and that's all you ever talk about is wrestling in the group chat and nothing else, or maybe a tattoo that you get, and that's about it. It's tattoos and what wrestling show you're watching, and that's our whole group chat. But if you're like that, tell your friends, tell that friend, that crazy friend that loves wrestling as much as we do, share a link, give them a podcast link, give them a YouTube link. We'd love to have you join the squad, join the team, hop in the comments live, or just enjoy the show at your pace when you subscribe to it on a podcast app. That's about it for us, guys. Thank you so much. It is my parents' wedding anniversary today, so we're going to hop out to dinner. Happy anniversary, Donna and Jim.
Happy anniversary.
They may or may not be watching on their phone from my driveway as they wait for me to end the show, but thank you guys for watching. We're going to take a break now. We'll be back next Tuesday, 6 p.m. on Eastern Time for another edition of the War Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good week, everybody.